learning objectives for this lecture. First thing, we need to know about the agents which cause lymphatic filariasis. We have to know about the pathogenesis and clinical features of lymphatic filariasis and the live diagnosis of these agents which cause lymphatic filariasis. Talking about the agents, three agents are there: Buchereria bancrofti, Brugia mellai and Brugia timori. These are the ones which are linked with lymphatic filariasis. First two we will be discussing in details. Third one, as the disease caused by this one, this agent is not generally seen in India. So that's why we won't go about it in details. It is more or less very much similar to its another species, that is Brugia mellai. So now we are moving on to Wuchereria bancrofti. Wuchereria bancrofti, talking about the epidemiology, Southeast Asian region accounts for the highest burden and it constitutes nearly 50% of the total burden globally. And when we are talking about India, the estimated 650 million people are at risk, and we account for 40% of the total global burden. And among the highest endemic states are Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand, Bihar, West Bengal. And these states, they constitute nearly 2/3 of the total load of India. Now talking about the morphology of adult worm of Wuchereria bancrofti. As you can see here, these are long slender worms which are thread-like. They have a filariform shape with the tapering ends. And important to note here is that the females are viviparous. That means they are directly discharging larvae. They are not producing eggs. They are directly discharging larvae. That's why we call them viviparous. In the larva, the first stage larva, we'll be talking about the life cycle in a short while. The first stage larva is the microfilaria, and the third stage larva, which is the infective stage, known as the filariform larva. And this is how the microfilaria looks like. Microfilaria, these are the diagnostic forms because these are the ones which we see on the peripheral smear. These are the ones which are present in the blood vessels. And as you can see here, these blue structures, these are basically the nuclei. As you can see here in this diagram, these are present throughout the body, and except if you see here, these are not present in this head end or the cephalic space and the tail end. And these are certain areas other than head end and the tail end in which they are also absent, in that it is the nerve ring, excretory port and the genital cells. So when we talk about the life cycle of Wuchereria bancrofti, it completes its life cycle in two hosts. And when we talk about the definitive host in which the sexual reproduction takes place, that is man for Wuchereria bancrofti. And man is also the only reservoir host for this pathogen. Talking about the another host, that is the mosquito named Culex quinquefasciatus. It is the principal vector worldwide. Other vectors which are less prevalent, in that we have the Aedes, which are less commonly used by this pathogen. In that we have Aedes, and in certain areas Anopheles. But in India it is primarily Culex quinquefasciatus. Infected form we have already discussed. It is the third stage filariform larva, and mode of transmission, when the filariform larva, it gets deposited in the skin by the bite of female mosquito. This is the life cycle. So man gets infection by the bite of infected female mosquito, which contains the infective stage, and infective stage is your L3 filariform larva. And then this larva, it gets deposited in the skin through the lymphatic vessels. It migrates to the local lymph nodes, and here they develop into the adult worms. These adult worms, now they come into the lymphatic system, they mate and they produce the filariform larva, which is the first stage, L1 larva. And after the production of this larva or after the fertilization, generally the male worm dies and female may live up to 20 years, and the gravid female has a tendency, it can produce up to 50,000 microfilariae per day. So now this microfilariae are produced, this microfilariae they come in the peripheral blood, and when the Culex mosquito, female Culex mosquito, it bites the infected person who is harboring the microfilariae in the peripheral blood, it gets infected, it basically takes, now the second part of the life cycle starts. Here these microfilariae in the gut, they come out of their sheath and then they attach to the stomach wall. Here they move to the thoracic muscles. In the thoracic muscles, they develop into L-form larva. After the molting, they form the second stage larva, then the third stage larva, which is the infective stage. And now this L3 larva, it migrates to the distal part of the proboscis of the mosquito. So now when this female mosquito bites the man, this cycle continues. Talking about the pathogenesis and pathology, it may lead to tissue alterations. Tissue alterations can occur because of the migration of the live adult worm, that may lead to lymphatic dilatation and thickening of the vessel walls, or the toxic metabolites which are produced by the dead adult worm, they can also cause the tissue alterations. Inflammatory responses, these are produced to both live and dead parasites, and it also predisposes to secondary bacterial and fungal infections. Both cellular and humoral immune responses are altered. Antigens of both adult worms and microfilariae, these are processed to the antigen presenting cells, and these are presented to T helper cells. Now coming to the clinical features. Before moving on to that, we need to understand what is pre-patent period. Pre-patent period is actually the time period between the infection, that means the entry of the L3 or the filariform larva, and the diagnosis, that is the detection of microfilariae in the blood. Okay, because it is the microfilariae which comes in the blood, so the diagnostic stage is L1 larva, that is microfilarial larva. So variable, it is pre-patent period, it varies somewhere between 82 to 142 days. And when we talk about clinical manifestations, they can be characterized into lymphatic filariasis, tropical pulmonary eosinophilia, which is also known as occult filariasis. Immune complex mediated manifestations can also occur. So first thing is the asymptomatic microfilariemia. Here the microfilaria, as the name suggests, the person doesn't have the symptoms, but microfilariae are still demonstrable in the peripheral blood. In this stage, patient may have the following signs: microscopic hematuria, proteinuria, dilated or tortuous lymphatic vessels, filarial dance sign. Here the ultrasound shows a motile adult worm in the scrotal lymphatics. Then the acute filariasis. Here the patient may have the recurrent episodes of high-grade fever, then the lymphatic inflammation, lymphangitis and the lymphadenitis, that is the inflammation of lymphatics and the lymph nodes. Lower extremities are more commonly affected than the upper extremities. Then the transient local edema may occur, dermatolymphrangitis, involvement of the lymphatics of the skin. Then the chronic filariasis, it develops generally 10 to 15 years after infection. It is basically the chronic host immune response to the dead worm, which leads to the formation of granuloma and fibrosis of the lymphatic vessels, lymph vessels, which results in severe lymphatic obstruction and pedal edema. And hydrocele is the most common manifestation. Elephantiasis, as we can see here, it is generally the swelling of lower limbs, but less commonly It may also involve arm, vulva or breast. Then the chronic funiculitis or epididymitis, chyluria can happen due to the rupture of lymph vessels into the urinary system. Then the tropical pulmonary eosinophilia, as I mentioned before, this is also known as occult filariasis. It represents the hypersensitivity reaction to microfilarial antigen. As the microfilaria, they get rapidly cleared from the bloodstream. They get filtered, lodged and destroyed in the lung. So the microfilaria in itself, these are not detected in the peripheral blood. This is basically the allergic response or the hypersensitivity reaction to the microfilarial antigen. So here we have the differences between the classical and occult filariasis. In the classical, the probable etiology is the inflammatory changes to adult form. Occult, as we have already discussed, it is hypersensitivity reaction to the microfilarial antigen. Diagnostic form, classical, as I've already mentioned, it is generally the microfilaria which is present in the blood and in the lymphatic fluid, lymph fluid. Then it is in the occult filariasis, microfilariae. These are already cleared, so these are absent in the blood. Organs affected, generally the lymph nodes and the lymphatic vessels. In the occult, it is lungs, liver or spleen. Pathology, lymphangitis and the lymphadenitis. In the occult filariasis, we generally encounter eosinophilic granuloma. In the serology, antibody detection is not diagnostic, whereas in occult, IgE, antibody detection is diagnostic. Then the another form that can be immune complex mediated manifestation. Circulating immune complexes, they contain the microfilarial antigens. These are found deposited in various organs like kidneys, joints. In kidneys, they may result in nephrotic syndrome, hematuria, proteinuria. When they affect joints, they may cause filarial arthritis of the knee and ankle. Now coming to the lab diagnosis. Microfilariae, it is very important to note here that microfilariae, they can be found in the blood and occasionally in the hydrocele fluid, urine or other body fluids. And collection time is very critical. We talk about the periodicity again and again when we are talking about the filarial agents. So it is very critical, and the collection of sample, it should be based on the periodicity of microfilaria. For nocturnal periodicity, blood should be collected between 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. As you can see here, 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. is quite inconvenient time to collect the sample. So in order to collect the blood in daytime, we may use the DEC provocation test. Here the diethyl carbamazine tablet is given orally to the patient and it stimulates the nocturnal microfilariae, and then they come into the peripheral blood within 15 minutes to 1 hour and the sample can be collected. Now a word about the periodicity of filarial nematodes. When we are saying nocturnal, it means they have a peak around 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. and it is the most common periodicity in Wuchereria and Brugia. Then the subperiodic. Subperiodic means they are present throughout. If there is slight increase in the afternoon between 3 to 5 p.m., then we call it diurnal subperiodic. If there is slight increase in the night between 7 to 9 p.m., then we are calling it nocturnal subperiodic. And it is generally seen in the Wuchereria, which is transmitted through Aedes mosquito. This is the microscopy. Microscopy is a very good diagnostic technique to identify these microfilariae. On the direct wet mount, we can see the serpentine movement of microfilariae. We can prepare the thick and thin smears. These are the Giemsa stained smears. You can see here it is a Wuchereria bancrofti and it is a Brugia species. Actually, the Giemsa stain smears are very useful as we can identify which agent is responsible for the filarial disease in particular case. As you can see here, these are the differences in the head end and the tail end. In the Wuchereria bancrofti, we can see that in the cephalic or the head end space, the proportion of length is to breadth is 1:1, whereas in Brugia malai it goes 2:1. And then we can see here these are the coarse nuclei which are very well separated in case of Wuchereria bancrofti. Whereas when we talk about Brugia malai, these are darkly stained, large coarse overlapping nuclei. So these are well separated in Wuchereria bancrofti and these are overlapping nuclei in case of Brugia malai. And again the differences in the tail end are again very conspicuous. If we see here the terminal nuclei, these are generally elongated in case of Wuchereria bancrofti. This is the tail end. If you see here, there is no nuclei in the tail tip and the tail tip is pointed. So it has a pointed tail tip, no nuclei in the tail tip and the terminal nuclei, these are elongated. When we talk about the Brugia malai, we see here there are 4 to 5 nuclei, these are present in the tail region. And then we have the two widely spaced round nuclei in the tail tip. So even in the tail tip, we have the nuclei here. These are two widely spaced round nuclei in the tail tip. One is here and one is here. And if we see the Brugia malai, it is generally smaller. It is around 220 micron meter. And the Wuchereria bancrofti, it is 260 micron meter. They both are nocturnal. They have the nocturnal periodicity. They are sheathed. This is their external sheath. And these are microfilaria. These are generally found in blood. These are the other worms. By the Giemsa stain smear, we can identify the morphology of the. So this was the demonstration of microfilaria. It can be by the thick or thin smear, stained with Giemsa staining. Other than that, we can use the quantitative Buffy coat examination. If you remember, I have already discussed about this when we were discussing about the malarial parasite. So here we have a small capillary tube which is stained with a fluorescent dye, and we use a centrifugation technique, and after that we can find the microfilaria in the particular layer of the specimen. So blood, it is generally collected during the night hours, or it can be collected during the DEC provocation test. We have discussed about the differences in the Wuchereria bancrofti and Brugia malai. Antigen detection tests, they can be used. Rapid tests, these are also available, and we can use the antigens OG4C3 or AD12 antigen. Antibody detection tests are also available. Imaging techniques, we have discussed about the filarial dance sign on ultrasound. Molecular methods are also available. Cultivation can also be done in the mosquito cell lines. The modified media, these are modified RPMI 1640 medium, or other mediums are also available. And for the treatment, the drug of choice, which is also the most commonly used drug, that is the diethyl carbamazine, and it is given 6 milligram per kg daily for 12 days, and it is capable of killing both adult worms and microfilaria. However, the adult worms are generally cleared more slowly. Albendazole can also be given. It is given 400 milligram twice daily for 21 days. And it has also demonstrated efficacy against adult worms and microfilaria. Ivermectin, it can kill microfilaria, but it has no effect on adult worms. Recurrence rate is high, so it is generally not used here in India. Doxycycline, it is used to target the intracellular rickettsial pathogen, Wolbachia. Wolbachia, it has a symbiotic association with Wuchereria bancrofti. So in order to kill this pathogen, this rickettsial pathogen, doxycycline can be used. Penicillin can be used for secondary bacterial infections. Then coming to the control measures, it is very important to control the vector. For that we have two categories, anti-larval measures and anti-adult measures. In the anti-larval measures, we can use the mosquito larvicidal oil, pyrethrum based oil. In the anti-adult measures, it can be DDT or HCH, hexachloro, cyclohexane can be used, though these are not very effective. Elimination of lymphatic filariasis. The global program to eliminate lymphatic filariasis was launched by WHO in year 2000. It has the aim to globally eliminate filariasis by year 2020. It had the strategy that WHO recommended yearly single dose of DEC with albendazole in all the endemic areas, along with certain exceptions, areas in which onchocerciasis was endemic or the areas in which Loa was endemic. In these areas, the regimen used was different. Recently in year 2018, WHO recommended IDA regimen, which was a combination of ivermectin, DEC and albendazole under the elimination program, though it is not yet implemented. In India, we have the elimination of filarial program. It is in operation since 2004 in parallel with global strategy. We are using basically the twin strategies. One thing is the annual mass drug administration of DEC and albendazole. Another thing is the home-based management of lymphedema cases and upscaling of hydroseal operations. So, dosage of DEC, it varies with age, and generally mass drug treatment is indicated in high-risk areas. In India, we have 256 endemic districts, and this mass drug administration is generally indicated in these areas. However, it is not given to children less than 2 years, pregnant mothers, and severely ill people. So, this mass drug administration, it should be continued annually for minimum of 5 years with a target of more than 65% coverage of at-risk population in order to eliminate lymphatic filariasis. In India, we have 5 states. As of 2018, we have 5 states, that is Assam, Tamil Nadu, Goa, Puducherry, Daman and Diu, in which we have stopped the mass drug administration after achieving the elimination status. Now coming to the another important agent, that is the Brugia melai. There is considerable overlapping in the geographical distribution of Brugian filariasis and Bancroftian filariasis. Brugia melai, it occurs primarily in the eastern India, along with Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand and Philippines. Here we have the certain differences. Majority we have already discussed. So location in both of these, you will see that these are the lymphatic tissues. In Wuchereria bancrofti, it is primarily blood and it is rarely seen in hydroseal fluid and chylous urine. In the Brugia melai, it is always in blood. In Wuchereria bancrofti, it can be nocturnal or subperiodic rarely. Same is true for Brugia melai, and Brugia timori, it is generally nocturnal. And the vector, when we talk about, it is primarily Culex quincke fasciatus. That is the principal vector in India. It is worldwide primary vector. Anopheles is also seen in rural Africa, and Aedes is also seen in certain parts of the world. And in Brugia, we have Mansonia, Anopheles, and for subperiodic, then we have the another species. In the epidemiology, they have the different distributions. Like Wuchereria bancrofti culex, it is seen in South Asia. Aedes, it can be seen in India in Andaman Nicobar. Brugia malai again in India, Southeast Asia. Now coming to the morphology of adult worm. The adult worms are essentially similar to that of Wuchereria bancrofti, as we have already discussed. These are smaller in size. Males are 3.5 centimeter by 0.1 mm, and females are 5 to 6 centimeter. So these are the differences between Wuchereria bancrofti and Brugia malai. In the appearance, it is generally Wuchereria is generally graceful, sweeping curves, whereas it is crinkled with secondary curves. Brugia malai is smaller in size. Cephalic space length is to width, as we have discussed, it is 1:1, whereas it is 2:1 in case of Brugia malai. Excretory pore is not prominent in Wuchereria bancrofti, it is prominent for Brugia malai. Nuclei, these are large pores and well separated, we have discussed, and here these are darkly stained large pores overlapping and extended till the tail tip. Tail is generally pointed, tail tip in both the cases. No nuclei is seen in the tail region. Here 4 to 5 nuclei are present in the tail region, and as we saw, 2 widely spaced nuclei at the tail tip, terminal and subterminal. These we have already discussed. Now, both lymphatic filariasis and tropical pulmonary eosinophilia syndrome, these are also observed in Brugian filariasis. Though majority of things are same, there are certain differences like more frequent episodes of acute adenolymphangiosis with adenitis and filarial abscesses are seen with Brugian filariasis. Chronic manifestations are less common, genital involvement is not seen, and the swelling is generally limited to leg below the knee, and chyluria is not seen in Brugian filariasis. Again, as on in Bancroftian filariasis, the diagnosis of Brugian filariasis, it depends on the microscopy. Microfilaria in the blood, they can be detected by Gimser smear examination. Antibody detections can be used, ICT tests are available, and we have the parasite specific antibodies which are available. Molecular methods can also be used. In the treatment, it is again same for Bancroftian filariasis, except that frequency of adverse effects following DEC medication is more in Brugian filariasis. So the therapy, it has to be started with lower dose. Prevention is same. We have to use the vector control treatment, and DEC can be used for chemoprophylaxis. That concludes the topic. I have to take your attendance. Please wait for some time. Okay, thank you.